Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're looking at prominent figures who have publicly criticised the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Because the BBC haven't put Monty Python out for 17 years, and I think the reason for that is that they don't want to have to compare it with a lot of modern comedy.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Piers Morgan.
Probity at the BBC matters. It matters because every British person with a television has to pay for the BBC, and because it's a national institution.
Journalist and personality Piers Morgan has steadily become a leader of the conservative perspective in British media. He occasionally turns his confrontational commentary towards the BBC, which he perceives as leaning left. He even suggested that the 2019 BAFTAs didn't televise the categories in which his show, Good Morning Britain, was nominated over BBC Breakfast. Morgan has also questioned BBC News' integrity, most notably when they concealed Hugh Edwards' identity when he was accused of sexual assault in 2023.
But we do know that a very senior BBC presenter has been suspended.
And despite a long-time rivalry with Gary Lineker, Morgan lamented his 2023 suspension and 2025 termination for expressing personal political views. Decidedly open about his own biases, the on-off ITV star clearly has his personal competition with the Beeb, Logan Paul. American influencer Logan Paul has been picking fights since long before his wrestling and boxing career. His alleged involvement in cryptocurrency fraud has inspired particular pressure from the media, including the BBC.
He has promoted cryptocurrencies to millions of followers online and appears to have caused prices in these investments to spike.
In 2024, Paul seemed to be extending an olive branch when he agreed to an interview with Matt Shear for an unflattering documentary. The reporter was instead greeted by Logan Paul impersonator Rodney Peterson.
You're one of the most famous people by many metrics in the world.
Oh my God, he actually thinks it's me. What a dumbass.
Paul followed this prank with a video accusing the BBC of protecting predators like Jimmy Savile and Hugh Edwards. There's clearly no love lost between him and his critics in the British media. Just rank them among the many rivals the controversial Paul has called out. JulianFellows. ITV has had a lucrative relationship with writer JulianFellows, but he seems to owe more to the BBC's leading competitor. Following the finale of Downton Abbey, Fellows told the Daily Mail that his complex, sympathetic portrayal of British aristocracy would not have been accepted by the publicly funded corporation. He accused them of living in a 70s bubble that catered to stories more agreeable to the masses. The Conservative peer was reluctant to call the BBC left-wing and even admitted that he would rather their art lean more Labour than Tory. Fellows merely feels that they fail in their mission to represent all perspectives in their programming. Despite his incredible success in television, Fellows has conspicuously never worked with the BBC. John Cleese. Monty Python alumni John Cleese built his career on pushing boundaries in surreal and satirical comedy. He couldn't have done this without the BBC, but feels they couldn't do it now.
What's good on the BBC, what's good on most people say there's not much that's funny.
In 2015, Cleese told Shortlist that he would never again work with the corporation after criticising the direction and quality of their format. He did not object to doing interviews with them until he became an outspoken critic of cancel culture. Sit-downs in the early 2020s ended with him either walking out when these views were challenged or being cut off as he accused the Beeb of censorship and cowardice.
We're back on cancel culture. Yes, I thought we were going to be talking about shows and comedy, but I'm not interested in doing this interview anymore, so I'll leave you now. Bye-bye.
Okay, that's your prerogative.
Though Cleese has consequently faced backlash, he maintains that truly confrontational art is in a faulty state. Katherine Tate. You'd think comedian Katherine Tate would have nothing but praise for the company that made her a household name, but she's dropped some not-so-subtle hints about feeling undervalued. During her 2019 appearance on David Tennant's podcast, Tate lamented how the corporation didn't promote her sketch show until after it gained a cult following. She described her obscurity around the office as typical BBC stuff. Audiences first sensed this in a 2016 interview on BBC Breakfast, during which Charlie State quoted a Little Britain catchphrase that he thought was from the Katherine Tate show.
Yes, you are.
Yes, but no but.
Yes,
They're Tony
but no
Blair.
but.
They're Tony
Yes,
Blair.
but no but is not me, but.
Did Nan's clashes with Ofcom not leave an impression? Fans still find Tate's continued collaboration with the BBC memorable, as well as her reminders of how cynical their business is. Gary Lineker. Footballer turned presenter Gary Lineker was one of the BBC's most beloved personalities until 2025. He was set to step down from Match of the Day when the corporation announced they would be severing ties completely over his criticism of Zionism on social media.
It's been an absolute privilege to have hosted Match of the Day for a quarter of a century.
Amid accusations of anti-Semitism, Lineker suggested to Amal Rajan that the BBC was looking for an excuse to sack him for the sake of brand reinvention. He's also participated in open letters criticising their plans to implement adverts on podcasts and the suppression of a controversial Gaza war documentary.
So I think it's best for all concerned that I step down from BBC presenting duties.
Nothing if not outspoken, Lineker has apologised for his offensive activity and expressed respect for the BBC. He nonetheless fears that they could be pushing towards commercial and political interests. John Lydon. The BBC represents a status quo that punk icon John Lydon has spent his whole career fighting. The bad blood naturally began with his feuds with the airwaves as Sex Pistols frontman Johnny Rotten. However, following the revelations of Jimmy Savile's history of sexual abuse, Lydon claimed that his ban from the BBC was over a remark about the presenter's secret life.
That he's into all kinds of seediness that we all know about but not allowed to talk about.
The convincing official reason was Lydon's unruly behaviour. He further accused the corporation of protecting other predators, whilst claiming to be purveyors of good taste. This was his most direct and high-profile blow to the UK's most mainstream media outlet.
I'm very, very bitter that the likes of Savile and the rest of them were allowed to continue.
Given Lydon's public image as a critic of such institutions, it came as no surprise. Jeremy Clarkson. During his tenure as a Top Gear presenter, Jeremy Clarkson took some light jabs at the motoring show's broadcaster. The most notable was a 2006 article in which he accused the BBC of mismanaging one of their most popular programmes. Finally, in 2015, he was suspended following an altercation with producer Oisin Tymon.
I wish people would leave Osh alone because none of this is his fault.
Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May thus sought ventures with other companies. They have since become more open in their criticisms, with Clarkson particularly focusing on artistic and journalistic constraints in the name of a politically correct brand.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how thrilled are you that Top Gear is nowhere near as successful now that you're not on it?
It's a hard face to pull, this one.
He's even accused BBC News of betraying their doctrine of impartiality. Of course, it is hard to ignore Clarkson's own biases based on a bumpy past with the Beeb.
James and Richard always say, no, it's a shame, we wish them all the best. I don't.
Noel Edmonds. Exemplifying the term personality, the eccentric Noel Edmonds first broke through on the Beeb. Their relationship culminated in Noel's house party, which the host famously blasted for its declining budget and quality in 1998. Edmonds left the company the following year, and has since regularly criticised their programming and business model.
As quite clearly the BBC is slowly recognising it's the wrong shape.
He especially caused a stir in 2008, when he declared that he would boycott television licence fees to protest aggressive collection. He also threatened to purchase the corporation in 2016, predicting that the BBC would be defunct before its centennial in 2022.
I've massive love and respect for the BBC, but the problem is it doesn't have enough control over its own future.
While that didn't happen, and Edmonds has occasionally appeared on BBC shows, they now drive his career in a different manner. Frankie Boyle. Outspoken Scottish comedian Frankie Boyle is infamous for pushing buttons, but his conflicts with the BBC are genuine. Boyle regularly landed them in hot water with his controversial statements, including internal accusations of political censorship. He claims that his own BBC Two chat show, New World Order, fell victim to this. Shortly before its cancellation in 2023, Boyle disputed a BBC News report that he did not believe in celebrity cancel culture. Was this a coincidence or an ironic end to a long-standing collaboration? Certainly, being beholden to the corporation never stopped him from questioning their integrity, with Boyle joining hundreds in signing an open letter condemning the removal of a 2025 Gaza war documentary. He's hardly alone in criticising the BBC. Who are some other stars who have beef with the Beeb? Give us your input in the comments.
Yeah, no, we are deeply in love with each other.